What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J-Monster. Today I have for you a breakdown of the Elven faction that we are playing our campaign with in the 4th Age Total War. There's not too much to say that hasn't already been said. I still recommend highly that you check out the guide. I'm going to link that for you guys in the description once more. But we're just going to take a quick look at some of the stats of our units here so you guys kind of know more or less what you're dealing with. But before we do that, we're going to go over the army composition. If you look here, you can see that we have a very hardened Elven core. We've got threshold troops and such in the center. Elven swords, of course, center stage is our general's bodyguard. I highly recommend that you use these guys on your front lines. They are fantastic and they will serve you very well. But I also recommend that you keep them in your center because that way you can protect your general by kind of hiding him in a cloud of troops here. So once he gets into combat, he's actually going to be able to do things. You'll have the option to pull him out if you need to. Without him being, left behind and caught by a swarm of enemies and eventually cut down. But largely you're going to be building your armies around a core of Elven troops, which you are going to try and keep alive as well as you can. Please don't make some of the mistakes that I've made in my campaign so far, because you will pay for them much later. I also recommend that you play, and I've had someone who I believe is either a big fan of the mod or has worked on the mod, but they've recommended to me that you play on not ultra unit sizes, but large unit sizes, because you will have some issues with population. Because of course when you recruit these units from provinces, they take population away from whatever city you recruit them in. So if you're playing with ultra, you're going to end up having a population crunch really fast. So large is definitely the recommended settings for this. And of course it's an older game too, so if you want to keep up performance, it's definitely recommended that you stick with large units, if only for that reason alone. But anyway, so of course you're going to be building your army around this Elven core. On our flanks, so you can see we have the Elven guards. These guys are on the front line. These are one of the few mailed Elven units that are available to the elves. In fact, I believe they're the only mailed unit, so they make pretty good frontline troops. They can also be used as fairly decent flankers, but I much rather recommend that you use the Elven wardens here, or the Elven watch rather. I love their sound vials. It sounds like Darth Vader. It's amazing. I just imagine a unit of Sith Lords here carrying spears. But anyway, also have a unit of Elven Foresters here. They look so cool. They look very elvish. I'm not too sure about their traits. Let's take a look at their traits right now, because I think we've gone over mostly everything. Actually, no, let's take a look at our cav here. So we have some Elven Scouts. Pretty self-explanatory, standard missile cav. We have Elven Riders in the back here. These are light cavalry units, best used as flankers, or for launching quick lightning hammer and anvil strikes into the backs of enemy lines, and then scooting out before they can surround you and retaliate. Of course, we have the Imlandris Lancers here, and let me just say that I love the way that these guys look. I really do like that they took a different direction than the Peter Jackson movies. This is kind of more like a Last Days of the Third Age Mountain Blade kind of aesthetic. A little bit more in line, I think, with what Tolkien had in mind when he wrote the story, so that's definitely appreciated. But these guys are monsters. They're tanks. Not quite as amazing as Glorfindel's bodyguard, but they are very powerful. So let's take a look at the stats here. So they've got a huge attack and a massive charge bonus. Of course, as they are lancers, you will run over light infantry with these guys. Honestly, you'll run over everything. So their armor toughness is 26. That's quite good. Parry dodge. I'm not sure how the dodge works, but I know that parry is like the defense stat from Medieval 2. And of course shield block, which is something that you only get when you are being attacked from the front or from the left side. If they attack you from the right side, you will not get your shield bonus because of course you don't have a shield in that hand. It just makes sense. These guys have 2 hit points, as do all Elven units, and you can see that they are extremely expensive. That's about the cost of a building right there, just to make a single unit of these guys. Of course, they are experts at hiding in woods, so you can hide them just about anywhere, despite the fact that they are cavalry. Bonus against cav, bonus against riders and large creatures, and I'm not too sure how that works. I know that this is a thing in newer titles like Warhammer Total War, but older ones like this, I'm not too sure. I know that there are some people who are very familiar with this mod that can help explain that, so I hope that they're watching this and that they do that, because I'm not too sure about how this bonus versus large creatures works, because as far as I know, large creatures are just like scaled up heavy infantry. But anyway, so they're effective against armor, which means they have an armor piercing bonus that will cut whatever the armor bonus is in half. So if they were fighting themselves, for example, this armor toughness value would only count for 13 instead of 26, which is very big. So the higher the armor value, the more effective their armor piercing bonus tends to be. Combat bonus in woods, that's pretty self-explanatory. They get some extra stat bonuses when they are fighting in woodland areas. Good morale, very hard to break. Powerful charge, as you can see, 32. That's gigantic. Let's move on to, let's just contrast them a little bit here with these Elven riders, rather. 21 defense, a lot less. Obviously, these are light cavalry, but they're a lot faster. They do have a nice charge here with about 13, which is pretty good for a light cavalry unit that doesn't have any lances or anything like that. And of course, they are fast moving, so very good for lightning strikes. Let's take a look at these guys here, just so you kind of know what you're going in there with. 19 at missile attack, very powerful. Effective against armor, I'm not sure if that I'm pretty sure that probably applies to their missile attack, but I'm not 100% sure. But in all likelihood, that's what it applies to. So that's going to be very good for sniping high priority enemy units. So for example, if you were playing against another Elven faction, you were playing a multiplayer battle, for example, a unit of Imladra's Lancers would be the perfect target for a unit of these guys. Very ideal because they can just chew through that armor. Their 19 missile attack is going to chew through the effectively 13 armor toughness that they have. Parry and such does not count against missile attacks. Although I'm not sure how that dodge stats works, but I know that parry certainly does not. All you really have to contend with is the shield and their large hit point pool. So very good at sniping priority targets such as generals. I really want to incorporate these guys into an army in my campaign as soon as I get an opportunity to. Let's move to our units over here. These Elven guards. Oh, it's like RoboCop and Darth Vader. It's just really amusing to me. So 26 defense. Like they're reasonably well defended. They of course have 7 attack, which is a little bit lower, but they are just a human unit. They are not superhuman elves. So these guys are, because they're so numerous and they're easier to recruit than your elves, you're going to be using them as the majority of your force. Obviously, they're very good at holding the line. If you look at these stats here, it's comparable to other kind of units, but not like the really amazing heavy infantry units such as the cultists of Adunabar can field. We'll take a look at that in just a moment when we get into the actual battle that you guys are going to see in just a second. Moving on, we of course have some Elven Threshold troops. You guys have seen their capabilities on the campaign map, but we'll just take a quick look here. They have more damage, better defense. They're just better than the Elven Warden or the Elven Guard, who are a late game unit, and you start off with these guys right away. And of course, they have their traditional 2 hit points. So very good. They slaughter cav, they slaughter infantry. You guys have seen them in action. They are impressive. Let's see, we have some Elven swords here. 14 attack, pretty good. 33 defense, 2 hit points. Obviously, these guys are very good. They can swim. I've not played a lot of Barbarian Invasion, rather, so I'm not too familiar with this mechanic, but it does about what you would expect it to do. You can swim. Very good stamina, fast moving, powerful charge. They do a lot of things really well. They are Elven infantry. These guys, I can't wait to show you these guys. These guys have just seriously impressive stats. Look at that, a total of 63 toughness. Amazing parry and dodge, so obviously these guys are a little bit more vulnerable to missile attacks, which tend to be armor piercing, but they do have a nice shield bonus, and they do have a pretty decent armor bonus, but definitely these guys shine against melee with that huge parry dodge bonus. They can just hold off wave after wave of lesser troops and have no problem. Obviously, armor piercing troops such as two-handed infantrymen, using axes or swords or whatever, are going to pose these guys a little bit more of a problem. So for example, the Bjorning bodyguard, you want to keep these guys out of the fight, or at least use them in more of a flanking role if you can, and use some of your more inexpensive units, preferably not an Elven one, to hold them down while you hit them in the rear. Over here we have some Elven Wardens. These are light infantry. What I have found is that most of the Elven Warden, or units in general, tend to be lighter, which means you're not going to always use them as a frontline combat role. For example, against a cavalry unit with a lot of charge bonus, these guys would probably get run over and decimated and routed very quickly, which could cause you some serious problems. It could break a flank, it could cause a mass rout, etc., etc. So I think it's probably best if you use these guys in a support role. I'll take a look here. They've got pretty good defense. But all of this is a respectable amount of defense, but really a lot of it comes down to a combination of things, and they're going to be most effective fighting other troops. They've got a pretty decent attack, Not quite as good as the elves, but of course, that's to be expected, and they only have a single hit point. Although they have the numbers that I think makes up for it. I really like these guys. Oh, I love those helmets. Is there like a swan or something on top? I don't know. It's just really cool. We'll take a look at these guys. 51, very impressive Lindon guards. We saw these guys in our campaign. They destroy. Very high armor bonus, nice parry dodge. Obviously, they don't have any shields, so they're a little bit more vulnerable to missile attacks than other Elven heavy infantry, especially because missile attacks, as I said, tend towards being armor piercing. But they can hide in long grass. Of course, they have a bonus versus cavalry. They're spear units. Great morale, powerful charge, etc., etc. Everything that you would expect from an Elven unit. And finally, we have our Elven Watch. I don't think we've looked at these guys yet. These are, honestly, I recommend you use these guys to protect your archers, to save the lives of Elven troops. If you can sacrifice these guys instead of some Elven archers, I think that's wonderful. They're reasonably quick and they make nice flanking units, but again, you're going to want to use them in a support role to support your powerhouse units, such as your elves. And in the front here, let's take a look at the Elven Foresters. Pretty decent. They've got long-range missiles. They've got decent morale. Bonus fighting riders, apparently, which I'm not too sure where that comes from. They might have like a hidden sword or a hidden spear or something in there. Obviously, you don't want to get these guys into melee. But even if you do, they've got respectable armor and toughness. They've got decent parry dodge. And they've got an okay melee attack. I really wouldn't try and keep these guys in there in melee scrap for very long. But that's pretty much the entirety of the army. So let's just go ahead and let's start this battle here. Okay, so we've got a serious cultist force here. They're moving forward. We're going to try and prioritize one of their units, one of their heavier units. If we can get maybe one of these cav units here and take them out quickly, maybe we can find a general. But we're just going to put all the advice that I just gave you into practice. Since they seem to be focusing over there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my cav that way. Regroup these guys so that they keep formation. I'm just going to move them just slightly forward onto the crest of this hill here. Give our archers a nice vantage point from which to fire into their massed ranks. They're a little bit out of formation here too. We've got some dark bows. Oh, really want to be careful here with how we use our horse archers. Of course, this is Rome 1, so horse archers are extremely powerful. It's definitely worth your time to use these guys very aggressively. So what we've done here is we've managed to isolate one of their units trying to chase these horse archers. Obviously, we don't want to keep them in range of those bowmen for very long because every elven life is precious. And of course, by bringing them over here, we brought them in range of the rest of our archer units. These are axemen. I don't believe they have a shield. These are just shock infantry. So they're going to take some pretty heavy casualties coming from this close to our line, isolating themselves. It looks like the rest of the Adunabar army is forming up in just a big hammer coming to hit us as hard as they can. But we're going to continue to be aggressive with our horse archers. It looks like the Knights of the Dark Tree are sallying forth. This is their general's bodyguard unit. You can see their general giving the order for a mass charge right there. We're going to pull these guys back because, as I said, we don't want to get them into a melee. Not if you can help it. We're going to focus on these guys if we can. Looks like we managed to kill a couple of them so far. One or two. Pulling these guys into a pretty bad position. They don't actually see these guys hiding here because they can hide just about anywhere. We're going to watch them charge right in there. Oh. Come on, run, boys. I want to be a little bit more careful. Oh, no. Bad things are going to happen. Come on, run, 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 run. I'm going to cover the retreat here with a charge from these spearmen. Drive off these horsemen, catch them in a bad position. Well, what do we have here? It looks like our Elven guards are going to be taking the brunt of that charge there from the Adunabar forces. We're going to put these guys onto the flank, use them, put them in a situation where they're is best suited to their talents. So there's quite a lot of them. Now I think is a good time to charge forward here since they have bunched up so heavily. We of course have some Elven wardens in the back We can use them to fill this gap here so that we aren't going to allow any of their cavalry through. And we're just going to continue to try and whittle down their heavier units, prioritize our targets. Looks like we managed to rout a unit of that cavalry there, which is huge. So we've got some Swords of the Shadow coming up. We don't want to get our spearmen into a fight unsupported against them, so we're going to start to pull them back and fire it into their ranks here with our horse archers if we can. So it looks like they're pulling back a lot of their cav. Now I think is a good time to activate our own cav, which we very prudently moved onto the other flank. So we're going to pull these troops back here. We're going to use our light cav to run these guys down and use our heavy cav up on this hill, because charging down... Oh, run, boys! Charging downhill gives you a nice bonus. Looks like these guys are going to get snagged on the... snagged on their flank, but that's okay. We're going to launch a vicious flank charge here into this group of Swords of the Shadow. Oh, looks like some of our Elven units here are getting a little bit strung out. Axes of the Shadow, these are Elven guards. So we're losing a little bit of micro here. That is just my bad. That is a mistake on my part. We got Guards of the Tower here, some heavy infantry. Not what you want, not a fight you want your Elven Wardens in. We are going to use them to... We're going to use this opportunity to flank this unit right here. I'm going to try and focus on those Shadow Riders. Got some Shadow Riders here trying to launch a hammer and anvil strike into the backs of these guys, so we are going to pin them in place. Some of our Threshold troops, though, are going to take some damage. Maneuver our cavalry into the back there, so we start firing into the rear of those units. Pretty favorable engagement here. We managed to wipe out almost all of that unit. And there's a unit of Shadow Riders here that we might be able to pin down. We are going to put them in a position where they have to react, because we're going to use our cavalry here to start striking this large group of infantry, whereas they are trapped in there, just hemmed in on all sides by our own infantry. So it's all about the positioning, trying to get your enemy into a place where they can only do what you want them to do, and what you want them to do is not at all in their best interest. Ooh, move these guys way too far. They are actually out of ammunition. Oh, we're having a bad time here. So it looks like these Shadow Riders have managed to catch our light cavalry. That's kind of okay. I'm a little bit fine with that, because these guys are Elven and as such are extremely expendable. So we've got a unit of Elven guards over here. These guys I think are going to hold on long enough. They're now evenly matched with these troops here. So I'm going to pull off this unit of Elven guards and a bunch of spearmen and use them to flank that unit right there. So our powerful units have managed to very quickly destroy their infantry line. We're starting to run them down now. They are actually surrounded on almost all sides. We did a pretty good job, I think, of hemming them in and limiting the amount of moves that they had. So now we're going to use our light cavalry here to start cleaning up their routing troops. All in all, a pretty decent battle. We only lost about 6% of our troops, despite the fact that we made a lot of micro mistakes. How are these Lancers doing? They have not taken a single casualty. That's how good they are in their fighting Royal Spearmen. So we're going to hit these guys in the flank. That's it. Pull them back out. How's this unit over here doing? They've taken some pretty serious casualties, but we now have our Spearmen into the backs of these Shadow Riders, and they are going to break almost immediately, giving our light cav the opportunity to run them down. How are we doing over here? It looks like these guys are just in combat, melee combat against some dark bows. They look pretty competent, but I don't know if the looks are deceiving or not. Looks like we managed to rout these Royal Spearmen here. Not even their high morale is able to stomach the loss of, I presume, their general as well as the rest of the army. So we've got these guys are going to be fighting to the death. These are Guards of the Tower. This is kind of an issue. Not something that you want to happen, is to like surround an elite unit like this and make them fight to the death. This is a much better situation because now you have the opportunity to run them down and not take any more casualties. So yeah, it's a bit of an oopsie on my part. And I don't think they actually have any troops left at this point. Nobody that can put up a serious fight. A lot of our troops did manage to get away from us rather. That's something you need to pay attention to when you are playing multiplayer battles. You don't want to get your troops isolated, kind of like what we did now. But it's going to be okay because the AI is a little bit dumb, and we can it's very easy to make them do what you want them to do, and they don't throw you too many curveballs. Let's speed this up here. Let's take our cavalry and use them to run down these dark bows. Victory. Let's continue the battle. Managed to catch all these guys. Final word, I guess, is check out the link that I have for you in the description that leads to the post that inspired our campaign in the first place. A lot of very sensible information there on strategy as well as tactics. Most of the information that I have comes either from experience or it comes from this post. So I definitely recommend you guys check it out, and I will see you in our next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Oh yeah, by the way, here are the stats. We only lost 168 men. That's pretty impressive.